What is up, though, Lions fans? It's your boy, Chef. We are back, and you already know what time it is. It is time for the YAK Pod episode number 63. Now, you know what we're getting into today. It's a foregone conclusion. We can't not talk about what we're going to talk about today. That's right. We are talking about the Amon-Ra St. Brown and the Penei Sewell extensions. Massive extensions. We're gonna get your thoughts on it. I've got a few thoughts. Obviously, Lions fans have thoughts. Lions Twitter has thoughts. Bears Twitter has thoughts. A lot of the NFL world has thoughts. Now we're gonna go ahead and get right into it. The first one we are going to talk about is obviously the first one that got done, which is the Amon-Ra St. Brown extension. And then we have here, per Adam Schefter, sources, the Lions have a deal for one of the top young talents agreeing on an extension for wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. He gets 4 years and more than $120 million with $77 million guaranteed. Now, we already know Amon-Ra St. Brown's story. We know he's a dog. We know he's a beast. We know exactly what he can do on the football field. But there are some Lions fans out here that don't believe that he's worth it. Now, I'm not one of those fans. I believe that he's worth every penny. I believe he did what he needed to do to earn this money. What is the message that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell send when a guy comes in as a 4th round pick? He works his butt off. We already know he catches 202 balls after every practice from the jugs machine because he saw someone catch 201 or whatever like that when he was in a high school, I believe, when he was in high school playing football. And he's kept that ritual up from that time through the pros. This is a guy that doesn't drop many passes. If he drops a pass, it's a surprise. If he drops a pass, he's angry at himself. He's even angry at himself for dropping passes in practice. We're talking about practice. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about practice. So this is the guy that comes in, works his butt off, first guy in, last guy out type of guy. Can help the other receivers, can help J-Mo in his development. If we were to draft someone like Xavier Legette, hint, he can help him in his development and all these different things. So this is a guy that you want. This is a guy who is a mainstay in the culture, in the grit culture. He's the embodiment of grit. If he's not playing, he's injured. We already know that. He tried to play through high ankle sprain before, wasn't able to go. So he had to sit out. I believe it was a Dallas game where he got injured in the first quarter. Not this recent one, but the one before that. What is the message that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes send to the locker room with this signing? What is the message that they send through the locker room without the signing? So with this signing, the message that they send is it doesn't matter where you are drafted. If you come in, work your tail off, be the embodiment of the grit culture, do exactly the things that we want you to do, exactly the things that we need for you to do, you're going to get rewarded. It doesn't matter where you're drafted. It doesn't matter if you're drafted in the 1st round. It doesn't matter if you're drafted in the 7th round. It doesn't matter if you're an undrafted free agent. If you come out to the Detroit Lions and you work at your craft and you embody grit, you are going to get rewarded. It goes to the authenticity of who Brad Campbell Really is. And if you're new, Brad Campbell is Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. All right. I say this on purpose. I don't want anybody going, yeah, I saw this guy on YouTube and he's talking about the Lions and he didn't even know the difference between Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. Yes, I do. I know. But just as I call the other people Quinn Trisha, I will call this regime Brad Campbell. Right? And if you really want to get funky with it, you can call him Brad Campbellman Hamp. Just let that marinate for you a little bit. Brad Campbellman Hamp. But that just goes to show their authenticity. They're preaching this grit culture. And these are the guys that they drafted. We're talking about building through the draft. We're not talking about going out and getting a bunch of free agents. And this is the other thing, right? Not only for the people on the outside, the people that want to get drafted now by the Detroit Lions, because for a long minute, people didn't really want to get drafted by the Lions. People were, let's say, sometimes disappointed to get drafted by the Lions because obviously the competitor in you sees an organization that is not winning. And even Amon-Ra St. Brown said before, when he was a kid growing up, watching his favorite teams play, he's like, okay, the Lions is automatic dub. They can't win. But, when he got here, kudos to him for not changing, for being the same player who he was, for relishing his opportunities and making the best of his opportunities when he got them, and never looking back. And this is why now we sit here and we had a guy on a 4th round contract, and now he is the highest paid receiver in the history of the NFL. But that's not going to last long. Obviously, it's not going to last long. It never lasts long. If you are the highest paid anything in the history of football, it may last for a couple of days, couple of weeks, couple of months, but it's probably not going to go into the season the same way. So this is a guy that deserved it, man. This is a guy that was rewarded. And here's the thing. Here's the thing that I hate. Dude, it's not our money. It's not our money. I mean, you can say it's your money if you buy tickets and you buy merchandise and all these things, and you support the team. But if you are just a fan and you are not opening up your checkbook and writing checks to these players, let's not act like in our situation with the competency that you have seen from the front office. Competency, this is like from the top down, from the owner all the way to, the players that are mainstays on the roster. This is competency. If you see something like this, why not have faith in the competency of Mike Disner and Brandon Sosner, the guys that are there to do the contracts? Because I'm a person that subscribes to the thought process that the cap is not real. The cap is only real when you don't have a capologist that can do much of anything. Remember the Rams with the F them picks and the going all in? Their cap situation was fine. Now, later on down the line, it became a bit of an issue, but you get a Super Bowl out of things like that. Now, they made moves like bringing in, free agents and trading away their draft picks for players and things of this nature. So it wasn't an organic situation. This situation in Detroit is organic. It is not from a litany of outside players. It is not from a litany of free agents. We are doing things through the draft. So when you draft guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell, and then you come in and you extend them, like I said, this is what they are seeing in the locker room. This is what all the players are saying in the specific locker room that we have right now, outside of the locker room, outside of the city, outside of the organization. Everyone can see things like this. If you come here and you do what you're supposed to do, you're a Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell type of guy, you're going to get rewarded. And that's what we can see from this. So he deserved every penny of the money that he got. And I don't think there's going to be any drop off. I don't think there's going to be any decline. I don't think his hunger is going to wane at all. I mean, this is a guy that still every day before practice reads the list of the 16 wide receivers that were drafted before him. Some of those guys that were drafted before him aren't doing anything. I mean, is Jalen Reagor still in the league? Where is he? He's like on his fifth team. It's just something crazy like that. So it's not. This is not a guy that I worry about at all. Obviously, he wasn't doing all of what he was doing just so he could get the bag. It's not like he popped in a contract year. No, as soon as he got on the field and he got his opportunity, he has never looked back. So let's talk about the Penei Sewell extension. The Penei Sewell extension makes him the highest paid offensive lineman. From Mike Garafolo, sources, Lions All-Pro offensive tackle Penei Sewell has agreed to terms to a 4-year, $112 million extension. That makes him the new highest paid offensive lineman in the NFL. The deal, which includes $85 million guaranteed, was done by Justin Schulman and Joe Panos of Athletes First. Obviously, those are his agents. Now, as I just said, as Mike Garafolo just mentioned, this makes him the new highest paid. It's not going to last for long. These deals that are getting done around the league are all deals that get done, and the faster that you get them done, the less that it costs, right? Devontae Smith just got, 25 million, 26 million. And Amon-Ra St. Brown got about 30 million. Now, somehow it averages out to, hey, David Barton, what's going on? David Barton in the chat, shout out. It definitely was a well-deserved extension. It averages out to like 28 million a year. There is like an injury guarantee in the third year that pays 14 million and things of this nature. So now you're looking at Penei Sewell, and he got 4 years, 112 million, but he got 8 more million guaranteed. He got 85 million. Amon-Ra got 77 million. But then if you look at the situation, we have the 5th year option. So that's another year with Penei before this kicks in. So this is pretty much, and he has 1 more year left on his current deal. So this is a 6-year extension. You have 6 more years of Penei Sewell. Is it worth it? Yes. He's like the top tackle in the NFL. Obviously, you can say that you don't agree with that. Maybe someone else you can talk about, but there's not a large list of tackles that you can say possibly could be better than Penei Sewell. For us, obviously, he's the best offensive tackle in football. He can play right. He can play left. He's versatile. I mean, he can play tight end. He can catch passes. We've seen him catch a pass to ice the game against the Minnesota Vikings. Like, there's just so much in this player. And he has held true. When Brad Holmes called him on draft night and told him, we want you to be part of what we are doing here. We want you to be the building block of what we're doing here. He was tearful, and he let the team know. He told Brad, you won't regret this. And clearly, we have not regretted it because he just got that huge extension. David Barton says maybe they get Goff done later in the summer. That's possible. Sewell will take the Decker spot in a year or two. Most likely. I don't think that Decker has a whole lot of, like, a ton of years left. What's up, John effing Lord in the chat? But yeah, I don't think Decker has a whole lot of years left. I know that they are currently speaking here and there, the Lions and Decker's agent. I'm not sure exactly what Decker is looking for, but he's a bit long in the tooth. And his play from this last season might have had a lot to do with the dead bone in his foot that he had to get removed. But we'll see how his play ticks up this year. Shout out to Flex in the chat. Shout out to John effing Lord. I'm not going to speak on that topic. But anyway, the point with the Sewell deal, this is where we let the capologists do what the capologists do. Like I said, it turns out to be like a 6-year extension. And then later on, we look at these deals. NFL salaries or NFL contracts aren't real. Like, whatever the face value is, whatever you're looking at, you have to realize that there is a structure to these contracts. If you say, okay, this guy is getting $85 million guaranteed, he's getting $112 million over the life of the deal. Now, we want our players to see that money. We want them to see all that money. If you telling me that Amon-Ra St. Brown gets $120 million on his contract for 4 years, I want him to get all $120 million. I'm not suggesting, hey, we move the money around and we cut him later. We backload it so that he's not getting his money. No, you backload it so that you can change things around. You can give him signing bonuses. Remember when Stafford, and I don't like to talk about Stafford, but remember when Stafford was traded to the Rams, I think he had like a $1 million cap hit in his first year because they converted $60 million of his salary to a signing bonus. All right. So there's a lot of things that can be done with NFL contracts. And I don't understand the emotions of fans, but I guess I just answered my own question. The emotions of fans. Fans are emotional. Right? So we're looking at like, oh, that's too much money for a slot receiver. Okay, well, Amon-Ra St. Brown spent 49% out wide, 50% in the stat, and 1% in the slot, and 1% in the backfield. I think he's a do everything type of player. I mean, he is the version. He's our version of Deebo Samuel. John effing Lord says in the Ask Chef chat, that's what we should call it. They have the Woodward Sports chat. We have the Ask Chef chat. All right. He says, are both deals good to you? Yes, both deals are good to me. We also have to understand that when these deals get done, they open up money, right? So what happens with an extension is cap hits lessen, right? You can take someone with a huge cap hit, like a quarterback, and you can extend him, and his cap hit generally goes down maybe in the first year of the deal. And then what you can do, again, we talk about signing bonuses. You can convert things into signing bonuses, which either, like I said, Matthew Stafford had a $1 million cap hit. He made $60 million that year, but his cap hit was $1 million because they paid him everything up front. So there's a lot of gymnastics that can go on with these contracts. 77 guaranteed, about 28 million for 3 years. Yeah, I mean, it's not a lot. And like I said, once you start moving money around, I mean, it is what it is. I don't think that Mike Disner and Brandon Sosner have shown us that they don't know what they're doing. We came in to a pretty unfavorable cap situation. We still had, I think, at least 1 year of the Jamie Collins deal. We had Flowers. We had his deal on the books. So there were the last regime that we had, Quinn Trisha and all of his cronies and all of their cronies. They didn't do well by our cap. Because what they were doing is the opposite of what we're doing. They came from New England and they said, hey, let's just bring all of the guys from New England over to Detroit. We're bringing the Patriot way. We're bringing the Patriot players, and we're giving them pretty much blank checks so that they'll come to Detroit and help us to instill the culture and be our guys. And it didn't work out in any way. It didn't work out in the record. It didn't work out in the success on field. It didn't work out in the contract cap situation. Put us in cap hell for a bit. So what we're doing it the right way. So I have no problems with any of this. Where do we have? Where's Devin? It's David. Is that that's David Barton. So I don't think that the Penei Sewell situation is going to cripple us in the cap. I really don't think that the Amon-Ra situation is going to cripple us in the cap. And like I said, it's also goodwill that Brad and Dan are building up. And goodwill goes a long way. We're talking about free agents coming here. Remember, we used to have to overpay for free agents to bring them to the Lions. We don't have to do that anymore. Now we've got people like DJ Reader who are, tweeting our playoff games and they're fans of the Lions and they really want to play for the Lions. And then their agent hits them up and, this dream scenario now for playing with the Lions is now a reality for me. You're bringing in guys who are embodying the culture, who are excited to be here. Everyone that came here, DJ Reader, Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson, Kevin Zeitler, they were all excited to be here. They were all players that we played against. And that's the thing. This is what I'm talking about. We played against all of these players, except for DJ Reader. We didn't play against the Bengals last season, right? But last season we played against Carlton Davis. We played against Amik Robertson. We played against Kevin Zeitler. Kevin Zeitler's game didn't work out for us too well. We got smashed, but even in getting smashed, there was something about the Detroit Lions that he gravitated to. Obviously, we beat Tampa Bay twice. We beat them once in the regular season, once in the postseason. Obviously, we beat the Raiders, and these guys, they just want to come and play for this team. So, Vincent E, what is going on, man? He says he is so excited we got the Penei and St. Brown re-sign. I am equally excited, Vincent. Very, very equally excited, and like I said, it's going to open up money. Now, if we're talking about Goff, because that's the hot topic that everybody wants to talk about, the Hendon Hooker speculation, why did Brad Holmes trade up in the third round to grab Hendon Hooker if he was just going to let him sit on the bench and sit behind Goff, never to play? And that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But my thing about Hendon Hooker is, I just can't wait until training camp so we can see the guy. We can see him play. Like Aleem McNeil said, we're gonna see it. He said the arm was buttery smooth. He's a hard worker. All those things, we're going to see it. And as the Heavy said, shout out Heavies, shout out Easy, shout out Spin More Racks. The length of the deal may be the sticking point. Obviously, Jared Goff, we saw him on the podcast when he when he took shots at the Detroit media. I don't really want to say take shots. Taking shots is kind of like we're alluding to something that's like unwarranted, right? So he just fired back. That's the word I'll use. He fired back at the Detroit media. And he said in that same podcast that he wants to be in Detroit for a long time. So I don't know how much he want. He may want 4 or 5 years, and the Lions may be maximum 3 years. Obviously, you have a contingency plan. You don't. Now, this is high level chess, right? What if Brad Holmes simply traded up to grab Hendon Hooker to only play him in the preseason, and maybe if we start blowing teams out, maybe if we get an Xavier Legette or a Brian Thomas Jr., who is supposed to be like a Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell type of guy, right? Maybe if we start blowing teams out, we get a Hendon Hooker to play in fourth quarters of games. I mean, our offense, though, is not really a blowout type of offense. While it is, it's a hybrid type of offense. Really, we play ball control offense because we established the run, but then we have a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs who's a home run hitter. So anytime that you give him the ball, he can take it 70 yards for a touchdown. You got J-Mo coming on jet sweeps. He can take it 40, 50 yards for a touchdown. I mean, obviously, he can take it 80, 90 if he gets the blocking. And then you've got him stretching the field. Once that chemistry with Goff gets fully developed, hopefully this offseason, I mean, he's taking the tops off defense. He's stretching the field. So, again, it's a possibility. But what if Brad Holmes simply traded for him just so he could have a guy to dangle as a trade piece 2-3 years down the line? That's high level chess. I'm not saying that's what he did. And then here's the thing. Generally, when you trade up for a player or you get a player at a certain spot, he's not going to be you're not going to get your investment back. You're going to get less. However, if he is playing in spots and some team falls in love with him and they need a quarterback, then that's your high level chess situation, because if you're trying to get a quarterback that's highly coveted, you're definitely going to have to give up a first round. So that's something that we can keep in mind with the Goff extension. Obviously, we do want to see what we have in Hendon Hooker. Nobody really thinks that it was the high-level chess, the play for 2-3 years down the line where you could go ahead and trade Hendon Hooker. I don't think he was drafted as trade bait. So obviously, there's a situation going on there where they feel comfortable. Brad Holmes I think he has earned. He has earned our trust. There have been a couple of picks, obviously, that haven't worked out. Really, the most glaring pick is probably Levi Onwuzurike, and that was obviously due to injury. We can't really talk about Broderick Martin. Broderick Martin was drafted as a project. Now, maybe people can say he was drafted too high. Maybe you could have got him in the 5th round. Again, and this is something I'm going to talk about in a few seconds here, about the board. What is the board? What is the draft board of Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell? Why did they go and get Broderick Martin? Why did they trade up to get him? Maybe there was something in the tea leaves that had them not being able to get them if they stayed where they were. Maybe he wasn't going to slide to the 5th round as we think he was. We do not know, and we will never know, probably, because he wasn't picked there. All right. So now, as I said, that brings me to the next topic, where we talk about Dan Campbell being on 97.1 The Ticket this morning. 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 97.1 or this afternoon, whether, and he had this to say.
Had picking later in the draft, and it's unique for fans. We haven't waited this long for a draft pick. How deep do you see this draft in terms of quality football players that are available, not just at 29, but 61 and on down the road? How deep is this draft in actual good football players?
I mean, that's a good question. It's, man, depth, it's hard to say depth. Look, there's good players all through this draft like any. It's just a matter of where they're at, how long is it going to take for them to develop some of those. But, look, I know that if you get one of these players in the top 15, you're going to get a heck of a player. And then after that, there's a good little run there of, potential starters, guys you think can come in and compete to start, things of that nature, or grow into it. There's a couple of areas that are heavier than others, but we also know those will go pretty fast. I mean, this is an offensive draft. I mean, there's more offensive players than defensive players overall at the top of this. So it's interesting every year. You go through this process, you find these guys you really like, man, they fit you. And then we're going to be sitting there, and you're just going to watch them fly right off the board. Yeah. And when it's all said and done, you look and all the legwork you did, and you realize it's like, man, all these guys you thought you really liked, they're not as many as you thought after the other 31 teams pick through every draft. So that's the nature of it, and all we got to do is find the guys that we like when it comes time for us to pick.
All right, so we see what Dan Campbell had to say on 97.1 The Ticket. Now, what I thought was interesting there, and I see Vincent E says Chase Lucas. What about Chase Lucas? Were you saying Chase Lucas was a bad pick? Wasn't he drafted in like the 7th round or something like that? I mean, once you get to the 7th round and once you get to undrafted free agents, I don't know if I blame any general managers for anything that they do in the 7th round and afterwards kicking the tires on a guy. But the interesting thing that I took, and obviously I'm gonna take it from my perspective, because obviously what I want is to trade up for Jared Verse, and that's what I've been wanting for a long time now. But he said it's an offensive draft and it's pretty top heavy, and there's more offensive players in this draft than defensive players. So if you can get one of those guys in the top 15 there, you're going to get a really good player. Obviously, he talks about in the meat of the draft is the middle, but what I'm reading between the lines, and I'm saying they're going to try trade up and draft one of those top 15 players, trade up to 15, grab Jared Verse. That's all I'm saying. That's all I am saying. And especially now when we're looking at what he said about there being more offensive players in this draft than defensive players, we might see defensive players getting reached for because of that situation. So there might be guys that are just coming off the board in places that we didn't think that would come off the board. So that's one thing. Do we have to use a pick for bets? What do you mean do we have to? Oh, for Bates? No, we don't have to use a pick for Bates. You can just sign Bates because Bates plays in the UFL. So their season, I think, is still going on. Let's talk about the UFL situation. Can somebody tell me when they play games, when are they on television? Because someone put out a tweet, how do we feel about the UFL? And I was just like, They're doing a terrible job of advertising. I haven't seen anything on Twitter. I have not seen any retweets. I've seen nothing. The only thing that I've seen, obviously, is obviously the Jake Bates stuff. And someone will repost when he makes a 65-yard field goal and things of this nature. But I have no idea when they're on TV. Fox on Saturdays. Is it the same time frame? Like 1 o'clock games like the NFL? Yeah, we have to wait to the end of their season. But where's the end of their season? That's the thing. I don't know how long the season is. I kind of know when it started, but when does it end? So on Fox Saturdays. But yeah, so if we wanted to get Bates, as I call him, Bates Motel, Jake Bates Motel, because his leg is psycho. See, John, you don't even know. You're telling me Saturday and Sunday, or just Sunday. Who knows, man? I'll try to find some sort of schedule for them. But no, we don't have to use a pick for him. We just wait till the end of the season, and hopefully he just has enough sense to stay in Detroit. I mean, we already love you in Detroit. You're already kicking at where your home field would be. Why would you go anywhere else? It just doesn't make any sense. And I'm pretty sure that the Lions will offer him a good enough contract where he does not have to look for any other teams. But if we're looking at what Brad Campbell now, that was a mistake. If we're looking at Dan Campbell, okay, like I said before, if you're new here, you know, I call them Brad Campbell, but I meant to say Dan Campbell at this time. If we're looking at what Dan Campbell said, and I think later on in that interview, he also did say that if our guy is not there at 29, don't be surprised if we move back. Now, that should show you that they're not staying at 29. Because why? Why would a coach sit there and tell you that they're staying at 29? See, Dan Campbell messed up, and I caught him. Why would he tell you he's staying at 29? He said, if our guy is not there at 29, then don't be surprised if we trade back. I've never really seen a coach or a general manager give any type of situation where they tell you or they tip their hands, unless you know exactly who they're picking. Unless you know exactly who they're picking with like the first pick. We know that the Bears are pretty much going to pick Caleb Williams. I know Matthew Broder, shout out Matt Broder, was down at, what was it, like kind of the Special Olympics, the Boys and Girls Club thing is going on tonight. And he had, he had, who did he talk to? He talked to Caleb Williams. He talked to Terrion Arnold. He talked to Malik Neighbors. Those were the things those are the people I saw him speak to. But Caleb Williams is sitting there talking, well, if I go to the Bears, you know, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is a good friend of mine, and I just beat him in bowling the other day. He hasn't talked to me since, and it would be good to compete against those guys. Stop it, Caleb Williams. You know you're going to the Bears. You know you're being picked number 1 overall. There is not any doubt about anything that's happening with the number 1 overall pick. We know they're not taking J.J. McCarthy. Okay, they're not taking J.J. McCarthy. Now, if they were to take a Jaden Daniels type player, that really would make so little sense because they just got rid of Justin Fields, and we know that Jaden Daniels is a very, very mobile quarterback. He likes to run. He likes to take off. Caleb Williams is a rookie, will make many mistakes. He'll make many mistakes, but I mean, he also said out of his own mouth, and this gave me hope for Dallas Turner. I'm holding on to hope for Dallas Turner, but I mean, I don't think Dallas Turner is a reality. I don't think he gets past Atlanta at 8, but it is Atlanta, and they do Atlanta things sometimes. So he said that he wanted, was it Fashanu? I think he said he wanted Fashanu out of his own mouth. So he said if the Bears, they said if the Bears pick you at number 1, who would you like them to take at 9? And he said Fashanu. I believe it was Fashanu, so that, you know, he could be protected. So he said that out of his own mouth. He's asking for players. So obviously, now the Bears being the Bears, when you draft a franchise quarterback and then the franchise quarterback asks you to draft a lineman so that he can be protected, and then the Bears go ahead and draft a defensive lineman. I mean, that's the Bears being the Bears. It's a possibility. So I would not be surprised. You're correct that the Chicago Bears have never developed a quarterback. They even take people that are already developed and make them meh. I mean, Jay Cutler was quote unquote developed, but they didn't really do anything to make him better. As far as, you know, the turnovers and things of that nature. And obviously, he had a contentious relationship with the fans, you know, so his time in Chicago didn't turn out what it could have been. You know, they thought that they were getting a guy that was ready to take them to the Super Bowl from Denver, because he was, you know, he's always a pretty decent quarterback. He needed some more coaching and more development. As we said, Chicago Bears are not good at doing that, so they did not do that. Is there a true rumor that Chargers are upkeep so they can get JJ? But that would be crazy if they got JJ over Justin Herbert. Now, I mean, obviously, Jim Harbaugh knows what JJ can do better than anybody because he was the one that told him not to do it. So, I mean, obviously he's seen him in practice and he knows everything that's going on with him. But I wouldn't give up Justin Herbert for JJ. You know, I just wouldn't do it. Say, I want to see Fields do well in Pittsburgh. You know what? David, I actually like Justin Fields. And it's hard for me to say because I know he went to Oh Hell No State. But obviously he's from Atlanta. I spent about 9 years in Atlanta. So, but I couldn't root for the Falcons. I tried to do it when the Lions were bad, but I just couldn't do it. It's just it doesn't roll off the tongue, you know, for a Lions fan. So. But when he did that St. Brown interview, when he did the interview with the St. Brown brothers, like it showed a different side of him or whatever, and I just kind of found myself like liking the guy. Pause. You know what I mean? Like I don't think he's a bad guy or anything like that. And now that he's with the Bears, it's easier for me to want him to do well, especially because wouldn't it be just fantastic that the Bears had a franchise quarterback and they didn't know what they had and they let him go and for nothing, for a bag of chips and a Faygo Pop, right? They just let him go to Pittsburgh for nothing. And obviously he'll go there and he'll sit behind Russ and say what you want to say about Russ. Russ was a good quarterback in this league for a long time. He's a veteran. He's on the downside of his career, but obviously he has a bunch of knowledge that he can give to Justin Fields to help him develop, because that's what Justin Fields needed. He needed development. He didn't have. I mean, he had a similar trajectory to Jared Goff. New offensive coordinators, new quarterback coaches, no stability, new head coaches, new offensive schemes all the time. So it just wasn't a situation that he went to. And we pray that Caleb Williams has the same situation. We pray that they do really poorly this year, even with all the pieces that they've signed. And again, I liken it to the dream team, Philly. I don't remember exactly what year that was, but they went like 8-8 when they had Vince Young, and they just signed everybody. And Vince Young said, it's like the dream team, and they went 8-8 and didn't make the playoffs. So I'm hoping that it's a similar situation. Give Chicago 8 wins. They go 8-9 and don't make the playoffs. I don't care, as long as one or two of those wins are not against the Lions. I don't care. Give them 8 wins. Give them 8 wins, and get them in a situation where they have less draft capital for next year's draft. So that's definitely something that I would love to see. But I mean, no, we can't. They can't go 8-9. If they go 8-9, then Matt Eberflus is probably safe. I don't know about Ryan Poles, but if Ryan Poles gets fired, then Matt Eberflus probably gets fired. So you want to see that happen. You want to see them clean house and bring in another GM and another coach, while you've got this rookie quarterback who, he has the propensity to play hero ball. And if they haven't gotten that out of him, then it's going to be up to the next regime to get that out of him. And then with a year as the quarterback in the NFL, does that hero ball thing get stuck even more, or does it become easier to go out? We don't know. So turmoil around the Bears, uncertainty around the Bears is something that we root for every single year. Keenan Allen can't stay healthy. That is very true. And this is another situation why I said the Bears need, either they're going to draft an offensive lineman or they're going to draft one of those receivers. And depending on how it falls, obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be gone. So, I mean, we might be dealing with a Malik Neighbors. And Malik Neighbors, when he talked to Broder today, he was talking about basically his inspiration for playing football was Calvin Johnson. So we hope he's nothing like Calvin Johnson. All right. John F. and Lord has left to work. We will see you later. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow, John. With rookie quarterback, give them 7 wins. Yeah, like I said, I hope it's less. I hope it's like 4. But obviously, you always hope for the Bears to do poorly. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You never know how the draft can go. But I just really hope that they trade up for someone like Jared Verse. Obviously, Broder also spoke to Terrion Arnold today, and he asked him about what would his thoughts of playing with Brian Branch again and playing with JMO again, how would he feel about that? And obviously he said Brian Branch is a guy that you feed off of, so that would be amazing. And JMO is a guy that can take the top off of a defense, so those one-on-ones in practice would just do nothing but make him better. And apparently when he was asked about if the Lions told him that they would trade up to get him, he said that was classified information. So obviously, these players aren't allowed to tip their hands. I think they pretty much know where they're going to go, unless there are some curveballs We've heard stories about players in the draft that are like, yeah, I didn't have any contact with this team whatsoever. I didn't know the team was looking at me at all. It was a complete surprise that they went to the team. Yeah, we need an edge rusher. And I've said this before, Marcus Davenport and James Houston, more so Marcus Davenport, is just a guy that I don't have a whole lot of faith in returning to form. I hope he returns to form, because if he returns to form, that is so much better for us. Him returning to form, him being able to play the majority of games, not get injured, yeah, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. But as far as like James Houston, like I don't really have any reservations about James Houston returning to form, especially because he's young. He's only played 2 seasons in the NFL. I know he did play that extra year in college, but he's still young. I think he's like 23, 24. So yes, he did break the right ankle, which is the ankle that he uses to bend around the corners. Had that tightrope surgery, which is generally successful, and he didn't really look bad in the limited snaps that he played in the NFC Championship game. Obviously, I wish that he would have played more, but it is what it is. But that's what I'm saying. Davenport, I'm not high on him returning to form, but I hope so. That's what you hope every time you get a player on the team, even if he's a Brad Holmes special where he's been injured. Like I said before, what Brad said about it was there's no guarantee that a person with an extensive injury history is going to be less healthy than a person that doesn't have an injury history, because football is football and it's a 100% injury proposition. You're going to get injured. You're not going to be able to make it through a season without getting nicked up here or there. It doesn't have to be a major injury, but just nicks here and there. But that is pretty much it for today. If we have any more questions from the chat, I'll go ahead and answer them. If we do not, we'll go ahead and close this thing out. Tomorrow, I plan to be here at the same time, reacting to the picks as much as I can. Hopefully, I won't have to stick around until pick number 29 to react to our picks. I know I will eventually have to jet out around. What would it be? 11 p.m. So I think I should be able to be here until our draft pick. But like I said, hopefully it is before 29. Hopefully they trade up and draft Jared Verse. All I can say though is that I am super duper excited about the draft being in Detroit, and I'm super duper excited about what unfolds with us, because we are not used to being in this position, picking number 29. That's crazy, but we can move up, we can move down, and it's just going to be exciting to watch how the draft unfolds, to watch how wrong we were in all these mock drafts, to watch how right we were with these mock drafts and these opinions of these players that we had. But as always, smash that like button on the way out if you didn't smash it on the way in. Subscribe on the way out if you didn't subscribe on the way in. Share on the way out if you didn't share on the way in. I actually forgot to share the stream myself. That's something I need to get better at, as far as sharing my stream to X when I go live instead of afterwards. But yeah, it is what it is. As always, we will be here tomorrow, same time. And until next time, as always, peace.